Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to the Square the Circle Music channel. I'm Aaron Major, I'm your best friend, and we're going to talk about circles and squares. That's right, music appreciation and vinyl collecting. If you haven't had a chance, head over and check out my Instagram page. I'm Square the Circle Records on Instagram. Please like the video, all my videos, subscribe to my channel. I would appreciate it. It's all fun and games. We're all playing along and we're all participating. You're all going to get a gold medal for participation. So yeah, got that out of the way. Doing something fun tonight. Doing something a little bit different. Calling all nerds. That's right. I'm calling you nerd. Starting a new series of episodes, and I'm going to call them Nerd Alert. We're going to be talking about all the great nerdy shit that I love. Musically speaking. Primarily, we're going to be talking about prog rock, because that's kind of like, you know, what everyone thinks of when they think nerd music, you know. It's, yeah, prog rock. You know, I'll dive into some other, you know, fantastic things, but first episode tonight of Nerd Alert, we're going to be talking about Yes, the band Yes. UK prog giants from the late 60s, early 70s, all the way through the 80s and into the 90s and into modern day. They've been putting out music for damn near, does my math work anymore? I don't know, probably 45 years or more. With everybody knows, like, you know, numerous different factions and, you know, upwards of 16, 17, 18 members, who knows, something like that. I just read in an article the other day, a guy that was like in Yes for like 5 minutes, and I didn't even know about it. You know, another famous artist that happened to join Yes, and I never even knew about it. But so we're going to talk about Yes tonight, and I'm going to do something I have never done before, and I'm going to do a ranking video. I'm going to rank the greatest Yes songs, IMO, in my opinion. I'm going to try to back them up with a little bit of, you know, substance here, just to kind of explain myself and how I feel and why I feel the way I feel. But yeah, I'm just going to do a top 10, starting at the 10 and working all the way up to number 1. And so, yeah, I guess I might get into a little brief history here with myself and the band Yes, and how my opinion will be a little bit different than most, because coming from where I come from, like, I'm from the United States of America. I'm a Generation Xer. I'm only 42 years old. So I didn't grow up, or, you know, I wasn't in young adulthood, you know, totally immersed and surrounded by all that great shit that was happening in the late 60s, early 70s. This is all something that I discovered well into my adulthood, after being, you know, spoon-fed hard rock and heavy metal and punk rock, and, you know, this shit was just not on my radar. It never was. I had heard, like everybody had heard, you know, their most famous radio single, which was the, you know, the All Good People, and I just never went any further than that. I was like, oh, that's a kind of a catchy tune. Gets a little bit kind of, you know, played out, a little bit kind of, you know, boring after a while of the whole thing. But I never really dug any deeper into the band. And then discovered some of their, like, kind of, not mid-career, but you know what I mean, like kind of their, like, later into the 70s stuff, Close to the Edge and you know, Tales from Topographic Oceans. I discovered that stuff, and I was just like totally enamored, totally taken aback, like, who the fuck is this band? I was just totally amazed. And then I pieced two together. I was like, oh, that's that band. Amazing, you know. And I just, you know, instantaneously fell in love with them and everything they had to offer. I can't even explain why. I mean, of course, all you folks that are fans, you know why, because they're fucking phenomenal. They're some of the most, you know, incredible musicians, technically speaking, their songwriting, just everything about them, their entire aesthetic and their entire, just everything about them is just magical. So yeah, just, you know, coming from kind of a little bit different of opinion, like I said, I wasn't raised in that era. So I have kind of a weird, kind of a skewed, different type of opinion than most people probably do. So just kind of take it with a grain of salt, all y'all. So I'm just going to dig into it. Starting at number 10, first on my list. Definitely a song that, or from an album that I really wanted to include some tunes because it's a very important album in their history. But like I said before about them, in my opinion, personally, I don't consider them to be a progressive rock band at this period in time. This was their very first album, just titled, 1968, I believe, originally released. Or at least it was recorded primarily in 68 and then maybe released in 69. But I've read that it was their first release in 1968, so I'm sticking to that date. And I'm talking about the song I See You. I love that song. I think it's really ingenuitive. I think it's really creative and cool. The lyrics are great. Kind of, just talking about that kind of, hippie, it's hard to explain. Just the hippie shit of just like, I see you, I see your energy, I see your soul, and talking just about, being in love and, summer of love kind of shit. But specifically to the music on that song, more so than the rest of the songs on that album, I feel was really kind of their first kind of like tiptoeing into the progressive realm that, the Moody Blues were already painting with, and, the Pink Floyd and this and that. At this point in time, they were really just kind of a popular rock band. They were just kind of doing everything, that popular rock artists were doing at the time. But I See You just has so many more just kind of like experimental elements and psychedelic elements. Peter Banks's, riffing and meanderings on, noodling on the guitar, jazz style, but then, you get through just kind of that beginning part when he's just noodling around, stops, he solos. Bill Bruford kind of comes in with those triplets, that really takes it into like the crazy kind of psychedelic hard rock, and you're just like, what is this band doing? Where are they going? And more ripping solo with Peter Banks, and then back into the just kind of that smooth jazz. I see you, just man, just dripping with the who's the guy that wrote West Side Story? Bernstein? Was that who it was? Who wrote the music for West Side Story? And they covered a lot of the music from West Side Story in their early years in 1969 and 70. They did a cover of the America cover. That was whatchamacallem, Simon and Garfunkel. But no, they covered other music, I'm pretty sure. Well, I think also Emerson, Lake and Palmer covered the America from West Side Story. Anyway, that musical was super popular back then. They played around with that. I just love all the elements of just kind of jazz and, spiritual kind of hippie shit. And it's just such a fantastic song. It's way better than the rest of the songs on that album, in my opinion. Harold Land and a few of the others are fun and just not fully cooked, in my opinion. So I think I See You, it really had to be on my top 10 greatest Yes songs. So sure do love that song. That album's pretty fun. So there's that one. What's next? Number 9. Going light years from there. 1983. The 90125 album came out, and once again just totally changed what Yes was in the eyes of the masses and the public, and just, completely re-envisioned who they were and what they were doing. Of course, everyone can credit Trevor Rabin for bringing some new spirit and new life to the band. But in all reality, he really just brought a wealth of just tunes, just, some really great ideas for songs. And he was a pretty damn good guitar player. And they needed something fresh and young. But really, still throughout that whole album, it's definitely Yes. It sounds and it just feels like the band Yes. Just that 80s incarnate, I'm talking about the song Changes. I think Changes is the best song on that album. And that album has a lot of really great songs. I mean, Owner of a Lonely Heart, you know, you can't deny how incredible that is. And I mean, the first 5 tracks on that album are just too great, just too good for words. Hold On and all that. But when it comes to some of the greatest Yes songs, and we're talking about this era, the 80s era, the Trevor Rabin era, I think Changes is really their most bold and their most brave, their most eclectic. I mean, it's hard to say that about Yes because they're incredibly eclectic in every way, shape, and form. But this is a song that really has no other aspects and elements and aesthetics like I talk about that they kind of the band embodies. This song doesn't really have any of those. This is really just kind of like, you know, Trevor Rabin's genius and where he comes from, the South African thing, and that's what you're playing with. You've got this incredible like African groove. This is one of the few Yes songs that actually has a groove that is a steady groove that kind of stays that way through most of the song, at least the theme of the song, the concept, and it's that off meter African rhythm, you know. It's ingenious, really cool. Everything that they're doing, you know, Tony, wow, I always forget his name. Is it Tony Banks? No, Peter Banks was their first guitar player. Tony K, the silver-haired 80s keyboardist for Yes. You know, really great keyboard playing. It's just really hard to stay on top of that rhythm and what Alan White's doing. Really fantastic. And then they take that super cool, unique rhythm and just throw that extra quarter note and boom, just put it right in 4. So then you just have the groove. You just have a groove song talking about changes, and nothing in life comes without change. I mean, nothing good in life will ever come without change. I love the message, the lyrics. John Anderson's vocals are tip top, perfect. All of the backings that Trevor Rabin are doing, the call and response and the harmonizing that they're both doing with each other, it's a fucking phenomenal song. It really is. It's my favorite song on 90125. Had to have a song from that album on a top 10 list of Yes's greatest songs. So in my opinion, this had to be it. So yeah, what a fantastic song. That's number 9 on my greatest Yes songs of all time. Okay, what's next? This one's gonna trip people out a little bit. Talking about trip. I'm gonna say the 8th greatest song by Yes is the song Return Trip on the Fly From Here return trip. So the second wave of that album, the redux of that album that they did with Trevor Horn. I really wanted to include something with Trevor Horn, the very famous kind of one album wonder, the guy from the Buggles, and he did that one album as the lead singer of Yes in 1979? No, it was 1980. The Drama album. And I was listening to the Drama album, and it's so fucking good. I love the Drama album, and all those songs that Chris Squire and Trevor Horn wrote together they're just magnificent. And it's again, like I said, just kind of like a whole re-envisioned new light on what the aesthetic of Yes was always offering, with just a cool newfangled spin. But just going through that album, and as much as I love it, I was just trying so hard to I really wanted to put a song from Drama on this list, and I just couldn't do it. They're also great, really cool, but they're just so poppy and so just kind of very straightforward, not a lot of real unique and colorful power to them. Machine Messiah is pretty fucking cool. But it just, for some reason, to me, it just doesn't have that like upper echelon great feel. You know, they were taking a lot of inspirations from, you know, I hear a lot of Pink Floyd in that song. Actually, I kind of hear a lot of Pink Floyd on that whole album. They just kind of like, they had probably just heard snippets in the studio of what the boys were doing on the wall, you know, and they're like, ooh, that wall shit that Pink Floyd's doing is pretty amazing. Let's try to incorporate some of that, you know, that vibe. I couldn't think of anything from Drama that I really wanted to put on my top 10. So sorry, I'll go back into this number 8. I feel that the Fly From Here album, the Redux, the return trip that they did with Trevor Horn it's just magnificent. I really like reading reviews and reading what people say about that. They really liked, I always forget his name. What is his name? Michael Benoit? Is that what it is? Michael Benoit? Something like that. Oh, Benoit Davis. Is that how you pronounce it? God, Yes fans are going to be super pissed at me right now. I think it's Benoit Davis is his name. And he was the one that sang on a lot of albums for them. But with the original singer on the Fly From Here album, and then a few years later they did the Redux with Trevor Horn, and I like the Trevor Horn version so much better. He and Chris Squire, the way they sing together is so organic, and they fit together so well because they're two, you know, the age difference, you know, between the first guy and Chris Squire has got to be at least 20 years, and his voice is just so pristine and filtered and pure, and it's like you respect and love the guy for that, but he and Chris Squire just don't gel well, and I think that Chris Squire and Trevor Horn they gel so much. You can tell that they have a tightness that has lasted that 25, you know, 35 years that it had been since the Drama album, you know, and they're still just like close as ever. He's got so much heart, Trevor Horn, I mean, so much heart in what he's singing and what he's putting out there. And he produced the whole album and, you know, recorded everything. And the guys, everyone knows he's just a mastermind in the studio and just a genius of everything he does. And it's just so great to see him put himself out there again. Everybody knows how difficult it was for him. He's quoted, you know, way back in the day trying to fill the shoes of John Anderson back in the late 70s and early 80s when he joined the band. And it was just like, it just nearly killed him because he couldn't do what John Anderson was doing in the band. And no one can, you know, there's very few people that can really handle that level of performance and quality, you know, and have such a high voice too. It's difficult. But Trevor Horn, I think he'll just go down in the history books as just being, you know, one of the greatest members of Yes ever. Totally underrated and underwritten. I love everything about that song. It's like 25 minutes long. It's just such a great epic journey of a song. It's really well produced, really well performed. All the sounds that they're getting out of all their instruments are just beautiful. Jeff Downes, all the piano, like classical piano stylings, and then going back over to his synthesizer sounds and doing it with just smooth, total synced up, it's just beautiful. Squire's bass sound is just fucking just crunching, it just stomps on your guts. I love his guitar sound on this album. I've always got so little to say about Steve Howe. He just really is my least favorite member of Yes, and he's the longest standing single member of Yes. He's just, everything he does is so lackluster to me. I like him. I'm not talking shit. He's all his singing and his soloing and his playing and his songwriting. Everything is so just kind of milquetoast about him. But, you know, there's so much that he adds to the band that just cannot be denied. He's always been, you know, he's always been there. He's just always been there. So yeah, nothing really sticks out about any of his performances to me. except for when he is constantly dragging tempos and just noodling and not really making a lot of sense in what he's doing. And then he chimes in with his vocals out of nowhere, and you're like, ugh, what is that? Oh yeah, that's Steve Howe interjecting vocals again. So whatever. The Return Trip song is amazing. The Fly From Here Return Trip Redux album, 2018, I believe, when they put that out. I love it. I love it to death. Out of all the albums post, basically post drama, right? That was kind of the end of an era, was 1980s drama. They didn't really do much after that besides a bunch of live stuff, the Anderson, Wakeman, Bruford, and Howe, before they did the Talk album, right, in the early 90s. But everything post-drama years, a lot of it's just not great. I'll shoot you straight here. I'm a huge Yes fan, but just, you can still be a giant Yes fan and not like a bulk of their career. But yeah, like I said, everything post the drama album, this is my, that album's my favorite. And it's like fucking 30 years after, and everything in between is just like not really very good. So that's just my opinion. Fucking love that song. It's genius. So I'll stop going off on all these weird tangents. Number seven on the list. Getting into familiar territory here. This song, I want it to be higher on the list, but it just can't be because there's too much good stuff in their discography. Number 7 is South Side of the Sky, off of the Fragile album, 1971. Some of my favorite lyrics by John Anderson. I like the way it starts out all kind of like dark and moody and creepy. You hear the background, like the door slam and the somebody runs up the staircase. Some of the best drumming by Bill Bruford that I can recall in the older days, all those crazy hiccupy triplets like that I'm not usually a huge fan of, but on this song, it really adds to the kind of darker, mysterious elements of the song. Like I said, Anderson's vocals, just kind of dark and atmospheric. The south side of the sky is so cold that we cried. Were we ever warmer on that day? It's just, I don't know. It's one of the first, I remember being one of the first Yes songs that I really latched onto and I really thought was like really great. The interlude in the middle when Wakeman I love that whole intermediary part, and just all the la la singing with Squire and the rest of the band. It's predominantly just Squire and John Anderson, and just the way their vocals juxtapose each other. I hadn't heard vocal playing like that out of older bands before when I had first heard Yes. Everything from the 70s always just sounded so like, blues rock staple, and the other prog rock that I had heard wasn't so vocal heavy. King Crimson wasn't vocal heavy. In the Court of the Crimson King, Greg Lake and what he was doing in the early days of King Crimson and stuff was pretty vocal heavy, but after that they weren't such a vocal heavy band. Yes was a very vocal heavy band, and I love beautiful vocals and harmonies and stuff, and this just totally, it was enchanting. It was enchanting to hear John Anderson's, beautiful tenor voice, and then, Chris Squire's equally as gorgeous, the way he could back everything up. And honestly, on South Side of the Sky, you can even hear third part harmony by by Steve Howe, and it's not bad. It passes. It's all right. It's not bad. So that just had to be way up on the list. I guess it's not that high on the list, but it's on there. I think South Side of the Sky is definitely one of their greatest tunes of all time. So that's on there. All right, getting a little bit higher up here, getting towards some of the big gems, so to speak. Number 6 on my list comes in. I think a lot of you folks are kind of scream at me about this one. Not that I'm obviously not, I'm not a hater of this album, but this album to me almost kind of falls on that list of like, people kind of blow it up a little bit bigger than they really ought to. It's their seminal masterpiece that, you know, people talk about. I'm talking about the self-titled track, Close to the Edge, from the album, Close to the Edge, 1972. God, what a great song. That pseudo kind of march theme that you get, but it's not in like the way the beat is interlaced around it. You don't get, you know, because the beat's not right there. It's the quarter note triplet. Da 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 ba da dee da 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 da. So you have that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and everything kind of flows a little bit more. And I wish I knew how they kind of pieced all that together, because that theme is so reminiscent of what's that classical piece? It's a march. I can't think of it now. It's the animal march, like the not Pomp and Circumstance, but it's something else similar to that. Anyway, but that march theme, and I like how they take that and they're like, okay, well, let's not put it straight forward, so that's in just kind of like a march 2-4 or 4-4. Let's kind of build it around this kind of long form triplet feel, put it in 6. Oh man, and just I love that theme. And coming from the opening like 3.5 minutes of just chaos, you know, swirly, swirly, and then they go into that theme. Just what a almost kind of a orgasmic type of like a build up to a ba ba da dee da da, you know, like, you know what I mean? Just kind of like really, it's very fulfilling when they finally make it to that theme. And then it's, you know, songs chopped into 3 different parts, and you know, you have the organ part in the middle, real heavy Rick Wakeman church organ stuff, stand up, sit down, talking about, you know, whatever, Catholic mass and this and that. So I kind of like the whole all-encompassing 3-part story being told of the song. It's just, yeah, such a seminal masterpiece in their canon. It just, it has to go down in history as one of their very, very greatest songs. Love it to death. Pretty amazing. But I kind of stick by my opinion. My opinion being Close to the Edge is kind of not overrated, but just kind of like, there's just so much more. There's so much more of Yes that I think is so much better. I've said this before. A lot of my gripe, I guess you could say, with it not being just like, in my opinion, not just fantastic masterpiece that everyone thinks it is. It's just because of my distaste for Bruford's style of drumming on it. I think a lot of his drumming that he did albums before was far better. I think some of the drumming on the first Yes album and his drumming on Fragile, I think it was a lot better drumming. I don't know if he just was, I think the overall consensus of what was going on in the band, you can tell by, you know, interviews and snippets seen in videos and such like that, like Bruford and Wakeman were really like sick of being in the band. They were tired of like the temperament and the workaholic nature of John Anderson and whatever else the problem was. I don't think they were adding up. I think that they had blown their wads, so to speak, and their creative limit had already blown over and capsized. And I think that they were just trying to like do more of the same old rigmarole, and they were bored with themselves, and I think everyone else was kind of just like, they just seemed bored. So it was pretty obvious what was going to happen and why they both left the band. And that's I get that feeling. Like I literally, You sense that when you're listening to the music. You sense how bored and how you can just envision Bruford and Wakeman both in the background just rolling their eyes throughout the whole album, just recording these recapitulations over and over and over again of, you know, they probably were just sick to death of that album by the time it went to tape and got pressed to wax. You know, they're just like, I want fucking nothing to do with this band anymore. So you get that. I get that feeling from Close to the Edge. But the song itself, truly a masterpiece, and you can tell that they poured a lot of time and effort into that. You know, and kudos to the, I guess would be the sixth member of Yes, Eddie Offord, you know, the producer and an engineer, the recording artist for that, for obviously a multitude of their albums, but specifically that one. You know, you can tell that Eddie Offord just like poured out his heart and soul into trimming and pasting together that song. So yeah, good stuff. Okay, well, we're getting about halfway through this list. Sorry about all the ramblings, everybody, but you can tell I really like the band Yes, right? Yeah, that's what this episode's all about. It's all about the nerdy shit, you know, and getting down and dirty, talking about our, you know, some of our favorite bands and our favorite music. Like, just I get so passionate about this stuff. So thanks for sitting with me and talking about this band. We're gonna keep going. Number five on the top 10 greatest Yes songs of all time is another one from Fragile, Heart of the Sunrise. You know what I'm talking about. Man, that shit. Fucking killer riff. What a killer riff. Talk about, you know, kind of proto-metal, kind of proto-punk, kind of like pushing all the boundaries. That really cool, you know, 16th note chop and rhythm, Chris Squire and everything else they're doing. You know, going from that like crazy up, ascending scale, descending scale, ascending and descending. You know, really cool, you know, unique flair, that proggy shit, you know, and then they can just take it all down and low, just boom, boom, boo doo doo, boo doo doo, boom, bop, boom, boo doo doo doo. Some of the greatest bass guitar playing, so fantastic. Just everything so atmospheric and moody. That fucking album. I've talked about this before. I mean, I ranked Fragile. I think I ranked it as the second greatest prog album of all time on my top 10 prog albums. Most influential and most important prog albums. Fucking Fragile, dude. It's so great. There's so many uplifting and fun moments on that album, but also some really moody and dark moments on that album. And this one just really definitely encapsulates the kind of darker, moodier aspect of what Yes was doing in those early years, 1970, 1971, you know. But yeah, Fragile, just too good for words. Heart of the Sunrise, love the concept of the, you know, the lyrics that he's playing around with, and when you get to the very end of that and how he just really brings that up, the Heart of the Sunrise, just it's really touching. It brings the hairs on the back of your neck just standing up. He really sells that moment. That's one of the better, bigger moments, you know, and all those Yes songs where it brings up to cacophony, and sometimes a lot of Yes songs can kind of fizzle out, but this one, he really brings that real, almost kind of operatic, you know, big bang finish at the end of that song. Really magnificent song. So number 5 on my list, Heart of the Sunrise. Yep. Oh man, top 4, here we go. Number 4 on my list, and this will make you guys happy. Another one off of Close to the Edge, 1972. I'm talking about the track And You and I. What a beautiful, touching song. kind of a ballad, one of their more kind of like ballad type of tunes. I love that kind of like after the initial beginning part of the song, and you just kind of have this real kind of like folky kind of like acoustic moment. Suddenly it gets into the second part. It's called, what's it called? They have such weird names for like the part A, B, and C of these songs on Close to the Edge, but it's called like the umbilical cord or something like that, or cord of life, or I don't know, some shit like that. But yeah, that middle part's kind of weird and wonky and cool, but it's like, it's not so much that kind of like makes you cringe. You kind of see where they're going with this, and stops into kind of just the the quick little it's not an a cappella moment, but it's just kind of like a real subtle moment with Anderson's lyrics and really just touching stuff. This song especially like has a real personal spot in my heart, because this was when I was falling in love with Yes and listening to their music a lot. This was right around the time that my son was born, and this song was going through my head. My son was born on like a super snowy day. We had just had like a foot of snow overnight, and my ex-wife and I, like, we were basically trapped in the hospital. We couldn't leave the hospital, and she had just had my son. And so I was just like staring out this window on like the third story of a hospital, looking out over the entire city that was just like covered and silent. It was covered in snow, and it was just gray outside, and I was holding my newborn son, and I just had this song And You and I going through my head, and I was just weeping like a baby. It's just such a great moment, such a beautiful song. This song, yeah, will always, bring a tear to my eye, but even more so than the album version. I mean, the album version is just gorgeous, but if anybody hasn't heard the version that they do, they released a it's not a bootleg, but it's actually, it's not unofficial either. It is an official pressing. I've showed it on my channel here before on one of my videos. I think on the symphonic rock video. So if anyone hasn't checked out my top 10 list of best symphonic rock albums, check that out. I highlight this album on that, but it's just called Yes Symphonic Live. And it was recorded in Germany with like one of the German national orchestras, and they did a version of And You and I on that, and dude, it will make you weep, because it's one of the later versions from like the early 2000s, when you get to that brilliant moment near the end after they get to the big moments, da 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 da, ba, and then the symphony dies down, and you just have the acoustic guitar. Chris Squire at this moment, when John Anderson starts singing, remember, he started introducing harmonica at this moment in the song near the very end, and he plays just these beautiful harmonies on a harmonica in the background. It's just so touching, and it's so perfect. Like, talk about like, it took 35, 40 years for him to kind of like think about, adding this to the music, but what a genius idea. Just like, I'm gonna throw in some harmonica on this part, and it just fits the mood and fits the moment so perfectly, like just absolutely perfectly. And that's enough for guys like me. That's enough to bring a tear to your eye. You know what I mean? That moment, love it to death. So yeah, that's number 4 on my list, And You and I. Okay, here we go. Top 3 greatest Yes songs ever written. For me, number 3 has got to be off of my favorite Yes album, off of Tales from Topographic Oceans, 1973, The Revealing Science of God. This song, this is the one I credit for when I discovered Yes. This was the first moment I ever had with Yes. I checked out a CD because I saw the art, and I was like, who the fuck is this? I've heard of this band, like I said, I'd only ever heard that radio hit. I took this CD home. I loved the art, was just so beautiful and captivating. And then I took it home, put it in the player, put my headphones on, and it's the like extended remastered edition or whatever, where there's like all kinds of like ambient synthesizer stuff at the beginning that Wakeman's doing. That's like an extended like 2.5 minutes of just all these really like subtle, just kind of moaning like synthesizer sounds, and you feel like you're in that like primordial soup of the ocean, just like swimming around and like, what the hell's going on? And then all of a sudden he chimes in with the dawn of the dawn, the, you know, the chanting, and you just hear the cymbals come in, and they're all chanting this thing, and the warbles and weird shit that Wakeman's doing, and I was just like, what is happening? This is so fucking cool, you know? And then when they break into the theme, you know, with Wakeman's keyboards and the guitar, dun 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 dun, it just hit me like a ton of bricks. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It's like, where the hell has this been my whole life? It just immediately like changed my DNA, you know? And then when I bought the LP, just looking through all this shit, and I was like, what is all this? Like, I guess, you know, Shastras, you know, and he's talking about, you know, all these 4-part Shastras, and about, you know, it just kind of laying out like how like you're supposed to invite, you know, artistry and music and beauty into your life. And the problem being that the way we evolved is that we evolved to shut it out. And instead of bringing in the light, you know, you're allowing the darkness to pervade, and the darkness to kind of choke everything out. And this, like, you know, Indian guru wrote all this stuff, and it's like outlined, and, you know, like the 4 ways to live your life or something like that. And I found that so fucking intriguing and so cool. And I was just like, this is this part of like all this hippiedom, you know, from the 60s and 70s that I just totally missed. And I was just like, you kind of want to ignore that shit, but yeah, it can't be ignored. It's too good. It's just too good. That song changed my life. And I've talked about this before, but, you know, coming to me at a point in my life when I really needed something like that, something to kind of crack open my head and crack open my soul. You know, I need a soul crackening. And it did. It kind of cracked me wide open and made me see and feel all of the imperfections and all of the things that I needed to kind of, you know, shed a light on and put a magnifying glass to, and just kind of really re-examine some shit. So, yeah, what a magnificent song. Number three on my list, The Revealing Science of God. Okay, here we go. One in the same vein. Number 2 on my list of greatest Yes songs is The Gates of Delirium from 1974's Relayer. Opening track to a very, very kind of world-changing album for Yes. I've mentioned this on my channel before when highlighting, it wasn't the most influential and greatest prog albums of all time. It was on the one I did of like the most underrated and lesser known prog albums. I got a lot of like people just kind of like scratching their head and kind of being kind of dickish about this one. It's like, really, dude, like, Yes was the biggest band in the world. Like, oh, how could you even say that, you know, blah, 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 Relayer's underrated. It's like, really, dude? I mean, think about it. Come on. Like I said, this is all like kind of subjective here, okay? Coming from a dude who comes from the 80s and 90s who fucking never heard of Yes, ever, until I was well into my 30s, you know? And even still, I come across people and talk to people who have no idea who the hell Yes is. And I'm not talking about young bucks. I'm talking about people who are my age, early 40s, mid 40s, into their early 50s. People who don't fucking know who Yes is at all. No clue. They're like, oh yeah, Owner of a Lonely Heart. I think I remember that song from when I was like in middle school. Yeah, that's all they know. And then talk about probably their most like divisive album they ever put out. Everybody talks shit about that album. So I don't know who these people are. You folks that have commented on me who think I'm weird for saying that it's an underrated album. Like, nobody ever discusses that album. Nobody on all these channels and all these people and this echo chamber of prog nuts on the internet. Everyone, all they ever talk about is Close to the Edge and Fragile, and you know what I mean? Like, that's it. Nobody ever, I've never fucking heard anybody ever say that Relayer is one of the greatest Yes albums ever. That's why I say it's super underrated, because in my opinion, it is. It's fucking amazing. It's an absolute masterpiece. It's so, so beautiful. It's so much better than than half of Yes's catalog. Like, it really is. And the song Gates of Delirium is just, it's fucking genius. It's absolute genius. You know, and because the album didn't have Rick Wakeman on it, and because the album didn't have Bill Bruford on it, everybody just kind of like, well, whatever. You know, I think Alan White's drumming is far superior to Bill Bruford's drumming. I am a drummer. I've been playing drums my entire life. I've been playing drums for over 30 years. So my opinion is as such. I'm not saying my opinion's more important or better than yours or anybody else's. I'm saying Alan White was a better drummer for Yes. And in that era, in 1973, 74, 75, he was a way fucking better drummer than Bill Bruford was. Way better. Because even the shit that Bill Bruford was doing at that point in time in King Crimson for Lark's Tongue and Aspic and Red and for Starless and Baba Black and all that stuff, Alan White was just better. He just was. He was just better. And I just really, I don't know. I got pretty sick of Rick Wakeman too. And so it was just really great to have a whole different mood to Yes. And Patrick Moraz was just perfect for that moment in time, for 1974 and touring in 75 and 76. Patrick Moraz was the shit. And everything he was doing and his soundscapes and just all of the interesting effects and everything he was bringing to the band needed that. They needed a complete injection, you know, a new, cool, re-envisioned injection. And that album's just the shit. Gates of Delirium just takes you on a supercharged, fucking crazy journey. I guess it's kind of loosely based, but I've seen it written and quoted by John Anderson about he was heavily inspired by Tolstoy's War and Peace. So you definitely, you get that vibe. You get that vibe of like, you know, there's a battle and a battle raging. May it be within the band, may it be within, you know, society and culture, may it be just in John Anderson's head. Who fucking knows? A pretty great musical depiction of an embattled, you know, epic, you know, a soul embattled. May that, like I said, may that soul be one individual soul or, you know, a collective soul that is the human race. One of the most beautiful kind of pseudo single songs, the outro, the Soon outro is beautiful. Kind of, you know, just kind of outlining that soothsaying kind of, you know, dawn, you know, the little bit of like waking up to a little bit more of a peaceful kind of world at the end of all that. So, I don't know. That song just supercharges me. I could listen to that song every single day for the rest of my life. Fucking love that song. Yeah. Number 2, Gates of Delirium. Okay. I'm going to do what I normally do. I'm going to do some special mentions. Gotcha. So yeah, these are ones that I really wanted to just kind of bring up and out and just not to anyone's attention. Obviously anyone that's watching this video is a fan of Yes and knows way more about Yes than I do probably. But I just wanted to bring these out into the light and just kind of give them some proper, because I love them. They're fantastic. They're not really worthy of being on a top 10 per se, but here they are anyway. So they're just going to get some special mention. I love to death. I wanted to put this on the top 10 list, but just couldn't bring myself to do it. It's another one from the first album, the self-titled, Yes, 1968. It's the song Sweetness. It was their the first real single, I think, that they put on 7-inch, wasn't it? The Sweetness single. The closest thing that Yes ever did to just a straight up pop song, kind of ballad love song. It's very straightforward, but it's very quaint, very sweet. It's a really, really great song. Great lyrics, great kind of a no, it's not. There's no real metaphor in it. It's just kind of a beautiful analogy, just to kind of about, you know, the sweetness in his life, and, you know, having tea and sweetening his tea or whatever. You know, it's just kind of like goofy teenage saccharine, but, you know, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful song. A lot of you folks will probably have this correlation too. Like, if anyone's ever seen that wonderful indie flick, it's called, what's it called? Buffalo 66? Yeah, I think it's called Buffalo 66. It has that one weird fucking guy. What's his name? Anyway, he directed it. He wrote it and directed it and starred in it. But it's an indie film, quirky, funny, weird, kind of goofy movie. But Christina Ricci is the love interest in it, and she's so beautiful. I love her. And it just is that song is in that movie. And when he kind of I don't know if he sees her for the first time, or if he kind of, when he realizes that he's infatuated with her, and it kind of like soaks into this, you know, all the lighting comes down and it kind of soaks in on, the camera pans in on her, and you just hear the song Sweetness come on. And really touching and really cool. What a great moment in cinema, and what a beautiful song. I just really wanted to bring that one out. I love the shit out of that. So that's on the list for being probably one of the greatest singles that Yes ever released. And the other special mention I wanted to bring up, because this is a song that I'm sure everybody is just kind of like pounding their fist on the table or whatever, like, why didn't you include anything from the Yes album? I love that album and this and that. So I'll bring this out for you, and, you know, kind of like calm you down, calm the dragon. But the song Starship Trooper, I've mentioned this before, is kind of on the Yes album, 1970s, the Yes album. I felt it was a little bit half-baked. Should have spent some more time in the oven, kind of like coming up with better ways to kind of like, you know, convey the idea and what they're trying to do. And it just, I've mentioned before that it just kind of like really brings you to a moment where like you feel something is supposed to rising, and it's supposed to really unload into this wonderful moment, and it just really fizzles out and just kind of leaves you feeling like totally just like half erect. You know what I mean? Like it just, you know, it just turned you soft. But they do a version of that. I think I've mentioned this before, that that great live album that they did it was either the late 90s or the early 2000s, really great artwork. It's called Keys to Ascension. They did a version of Starship Trooper on Keys to Ascension that is fucking legit. It is by far, out of all the versions of that song that I've heard on live albums and studio albums, whatever, that one's the best. They nail it. They really nail it. I'm fairly certain that it's the original group too. I think it's Wakeman and Bruford, and yeah, I think it's everybody. I think it's the 5 founding original members. I guess they wouldn't be the original members, but what everyone considers to be the staple Fab 5 that is Yes. You know, Anderson, Wakeman, Bruford, Howe, and Squire. Yeah, that Keys to Ascension album and the version of Starship Trooper that they do on that album is pretty fucking rad. So I wanted to throw that up as a special mention. It's a really great rendition of that song. So here we go. Number 1, the greatest Yes song. The greatest Yes song ever written. is Awaken, off the album Going for the One, 1977. It truly is. The subject matter, everything about the song, the way it enters, the middle, the end, all the instrumentations, the lyrical message, just all of the fun stuff that you're hearing throughout the whole journey. It's such a wonderful musical journey. The vocalizations and just how intricate and crazy they get with just, you'll have the moments where, Anderson will be doing da 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 da, the ups and downs, and Squire will be doing it just one quarter note off of what he's doing. So, Anderson will have the up and down while Squire will take it up and down. And then the instruments will do the same thing, the same pattern, musical pattern, so you just have this overall rippling effect. It's just one mountainous thing going up and down and over again, and they all just kind of build on each other. So you just have this swirling cycle of rhythm and vocals, and it's just so overwhelming in a good way, really good overwhelming feeling, especially if you put it in the headphones and you just kind of you don't know what's going on. It's are they summoning something here? It's it kind of feels like it's some sort of cantos, I don't know. It's pretty wonderful, pretty amazing. Yeah, it's one of those that I don't want to sit here and just sing the whole song, and kind of go through all the parts and talk about all the cool rhythms and just all the neat things that are happening. And it's finally, I can really give some accolades to Steve Howe. It has some of the best guitar playing by Steve Howe on any of the Yes records ever, both on his acoustic and his electric. And yeah, there's harp on it, and there's all kinds of auxiliary percussion and just all kinds of fantastic shit. Yeah, it is by far, in my opinion, the greatest Yes song ever written. Truly is. So there's that. That was fun. That was exhausting. And it's exhausting to talk about them, but they're not exhausting to listen to. It's the type of music where you can just, it paints pictures in your head. There's such an enjoyable band. It's such a wonderful piece of musical history. And so we're all very lucky to have that band on our record shelves. So thanks everybody for listening. This has been your pal, Aaron Major, here at the Square the Circle Music Channel, Springfield, Oregon, signing off. Don't forget to call your grandma. She's been waiting to hear from you. So keep them clean, and peace be with you.